Okay, everybody, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Katie Gleddy-Syan. I am the director of McFarland Senior Outreach. That's new to me, so I have to get used to that, calling myself the director position. But I'm the new director at McFarland Senior Outreach, and I'm so glad that you've come today for our presentation of Aging with Wisdom. Before we get started, just a couple of announcements. If you do have a cell phone with you, if you could bring that out and go ahead and turn it off for the duration of our presentation, that would be great. We are going to be recording this and putting it on our website so that for people who maybe couldn't come today can see it. That we do have a few events coming up that I just want to make sure that you're all aware of. We have our senior coffee and conversation hour coming up on April 3rd. We hope you can come to that. That's drop-in from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. here in this room. We have coffee and pastries, and we would love to have you join us for that. In April, for National Healthcare Decision Day, we have the UW Advanced Care Planning Team coming here. They're going to be doing a presentation on April 8th about all the different documents to have in place for you if ever you need someone else to help make decisions on your behalf, such as a power of attorney for healthcare. Then they're coming back on the 16th so that they can assist you if you would like to complete those documents or update those documents. So you can make appointments for those. So I just want to make sure you know about that. And then since it's April and in honor of spring and the beginning of baseball season, our senior film series is going to be Field of Dreams for our movie on April 17th. So I hope you all can come to those events. But for today, because March has National Slam the Scam Month, we want to bring attention to different scams and frauds, especially that are directed towards older adults. I'm sure you all know that that's an issue. Do you get phone calls maybe from scammers or email or mailings, all of the above? Yes. Definitely an issue for older adults these days. So today we have invited Jackie Falk and David Markham. Jackie Falk is the director of Call for Action, the Madison branch of Call for Action, which is paired with News 3. We are glad to have her and volunteer David Markham here to talk about what to do if you are the victim of a scam and what steps to take at that point. Hopefully you won't be. But if you are, what should you do? Okay, so let's all welcome Jackie and David.
Thank you, Katie. And hello, everyone. Happy first day of spring. It would be a great day to celebrate it if there wasn't the snow and ice this morning. So, I am Jackie Falk. I'm the director of the Madison office of Call for Action. And I want to thank you all for granting me the honor of coming in and talking to you guys today. I think what we're talking about is something that really needs to be talked about. Let's start, if I could, with a show of hands. Before today, have you heard about Call for Action or used our services at all? A few of you know about us. Good, that's excellent. What I'm going to start out with today is what I call our basic Call for Action 101, telling you who Call for Action is, what it is that we do, how we help people, that type of thing. From there, I'm going to go on. There's another talk that I do that's specifically about identity theft and frauds and scams, and I'm going to take part out of that, and I'm going to talk today too about things you should think about, maybe that you should implement if you haven't already, to try and keep yourself safe. So, my next question for all of you, and you can choose to raise your hand or not if you want to, but have you been frustrated getting what you deserve from an organization, getting a refund, finding out where your money went when you make an online order, that type of thing? Or have you been a victim of fraud or scam? Anybody? A few. I'm sorry for you. It's hard. So, when that does happen and you don't know where to turn, or you've been trying to get something resolved and you're not getting calls back, or it just feels like you're running into roadblocks and you're never going to get your money back, those are the sort of things to think about contacting Call for Action to see if we can help you out with that. I will get you that, and it'll be up on the screen eventually here. There you go. My next slide. I need to know where my slides are. So, Call for Action is actually a national nonprofit organization, and our mission is to connect consumers and small businesses as well with education, and most commonly helping to resolve consumer issues. Call for Action has been operating for more than 60 years, and our organization is headquartered in the Washington, D.C. area, Rockville, Maryland specifically. There's 12 Call for Action offices. Madison is one of those, and they're located in various cities throughout the United States, from Boston to Honolulu. So, we are a 100% volunteer organization. Everyone that works for Call for Action, from our board of directors, our president, down to the people that are taking your phone calls, everybody is a volunteer. And they're all working together to help resolve the consumer problem. So, here in Madison, here in Madison, our volunteer consumer advocates all work part-time. Our volunteers work in our office for 1 3-hour shift weekly. Now, some of us work additional hours. Everyone is set up to be able to work from home if they want or need to. So if someone was volunteering for us and it was a morning like this morning and the roads were icy, let's say, and they wanted to work their shift that day, but they weren't entirely comfortable driving on the roads, they could work from home that day. And some of our volunteers work a few extra hours a week too from home. Sometimes they just have the time and they want to. Sometimes it's a case that they're working on that they want to get to resolution sooner and you need to make some phone calls. So everyone works a 3-hour shift. Some people work a little bit more than that. The Madison Call for Action office is unique in several ways from the other offices, and I'm going to talk about some of those today. And the first is because of the size of the geographical area where we service consumers in, if that makes sense. So we service consumers that live anywhere in the state of Wisconsin, as well as in the states of Illinois and Minnesota. So if you've got a relative that lives in the Twin Cities that's having some problems, you could give them our information and we'd be able to help them out. So all of the other offices serve the greater city that they live in. So example, our Atlanta office serves the greater Atlanta area, but ours is bigger. So most of the consumers that we help, though, are in the south central Wisconsin area here. And that's because of where our services are promoted through Channel 3 and Channel 3000 primarily. Every affiliate office of Call for Action, the Atlanta office, the Madison office, etc., all of them are sponsored by a local media partner. Now, when we started out 62 years ago, a media partner most commonly was a newspaper or maybe a radio station. Today, everyone is sponsored by a television station. There's been a Madison Call for Action office for well over 15 years, and we are very proud to be sponsored by WISC-TV, which is Channel 3, as most of you know them. Our partnership with Channel 3 gives us the physical office space to work in, so we work inside the studio stations of Channel 3. They give us the equipment that we need to do the job, the telephones, the computers, that type of things. And they promote our services, promote Call for Action. If you're a Channel 3 viewer, you may have seen promotional spots about Call for Action. 2 weeks ago, they sponsored a call-in show for Call for Action in the evening, over the evening newscast. It was from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. So we kind of got our name in front of some people, some viewers that might not see us at other times. And then you could call in with a case, and our consumer advocates have worked on cases that came in that evening, or are some of them still continuing to work on them. You may also, if you're a Channel 3 viewer, you may also have seen news stories or seen them on Channel 3000 on consumer problems that were solved by Call for Action. That's not typical. Certainly, not every case that we work on becomes a news story for one reason or another. But occasionally a news reporter will hear about a case that we're working on, and they'll want to do a news story on that. They think it's something that should get in front of the public. It's something that's got some interest in there. When that happens, the first thing that we do is we go to that consumer and we say, hey, you know, this reporter has approached us. They want to do a news story on your case. How do you feel about that? Part of what that would involve would be the reporter and a camera coming out to you and interviewing you. You'd be on camera. Some people don't want their stories aired. Some people don't want to be interviewed. So if someone says, no, I don't want that, that's perfectly okay. We're still going to work on the case just the same. It's just not going to be on air. And so often if you call in with a case, one of the first questions in the first conversation you have with one of our consumer advocates is they'll say, are you willing to be interviewed on air? And you can say yes, you can say no, you can say, I don't know, you know, and then the I don't know we'll explore later if it comes up for that. So, Call for Action. So Call for Action is not a part of Channel 3. We're two completely separate organizations. We're simply sponsored by the station. It's not uncommon either for people to come to us and say, hey, this is happening to me. I want this story to go on air. That isn't something that we can guarantee, and it isn't typically something that we promote. If that's what the person wants, if they really are more concerned about their story being broadcast than they are having someone help them get a resolution on something, we do help them with letting them know who they can get in touch with at the station to try and do that, how to do that, how to get in touch with other media, maybe. So we try and do what we can to help them accomplish that. Another way that the Madison Call for Action office is unique is that we are the only affiliate station that stayed open during COVID. And COVID's a bad memory for all of us. When COVID hit, all of the offices shut down, and there was a lot more Call for Action offices at that time. I think there was probably twice as many as there are now. But they all shut down for various lengths of time, depending on the state they were in, the community that they were in. The consumer advocate volunteers here in Madison just really took offense to that. They knew that the consumers were still out there and were still having problems. So they banded together. They were the ones to figure out how we could work from home, how we could have a safe phone system, access the database, all of that. And that's when all of that was put into action. And so we were the only office that stayed open all the way through COVID. A lot of the cases that we worked on during COVID changed. What we saw very commonly was people reaching out to us with safety issues. They, couldn't do their jobs. They couldn't get the gloves that they needed, the masks that they needed. So we stepped in and helped with a lot of that. So helped those critical care workers that were struggling with that. There's some of our consumer advocates at work. Our highly trained consumer advocates, I have to say again, are absolutely passionate about what they're doing to help people. Each of them brings strong professional experience from various career backgrounds, and so we often collaborate with one another. If I'm working on a case in healthcare, that's not my strongest suit. I can probably muddle through it. But we've got two other advocates who have strong healthcare backgrounds. So I would probably talk to them and say, how would you go about this? So we collaborate with each other a lot to make sure we can do the very best that we can for our consumers. We help consumers by providing them with direction to solve their problems, sometimes mediation between them or between us and the companies that they're working with. Sometimes it's education on a wide variety of problems. And this can be with businesses, with government agencies, with health agencies, many organizations. We work with consumers on things that are as simple as a grocery store refund, and all kinds of consumer problems. We work with them on insurance billing issues or understand what their insurance billing is saying, should they be covered or not. We see a lot of landlord-tenant problems, auto repair issues. That comes up a lot. Contractor problems is one we see frequently. And there's just a whole lot more. Anything consumer related, we help with. Our services are always free and confidential and available to all individuals and to small businesses with consumer issues or those that are victimized by fraud. Another unique aspect of the Madison Call for Action is the ongoing training that we provide to our volunteers. Things are changing all the time. So monthly we have a short video meeting that we do from our homes to exchange information with each other. And then twice a year we have an in-house training session where we all come together. And when we do that, we bring in experts from a variety of federal and state agencies as well as industry professionals to educate us. We've got one coming up in a couple of weeks, and we've got a representative coming in and talking with us there from the Better Business Bureau, and another agency which skips my mind right now, but I think it's very important that we constantly keep our skills updated on things that are changing. We also in Madison are a little bit unique in the way that we're going out of our way and educating consumers. So locally you find us out and speaking to the public, just like today. We speak at community organizations, in senior centers. We go out in education in cooperation with local authorities in varieties of communities. I've spoken to people in communities throughout Dane County and even down into Rock County. I have one scheduled next month. So when I go out, sometimes I'm going out and doing just a quick basic who is call for action. Other times it's more in depth on frauds and scams, identity theft, things like that. So when a consumer has a problem, a complaint, they come to us, they can come to us online, and they come to us also by phone. Two ways that our complaints are received. When we get a complaint in, it's assigned to one of our 12 consumer advocate volunteers. That advocate will usually start out by kind of reviewing the case and then having a conversation with that consumer if they haven't taken the case in directly themselves. So they'll want to know, exactly what the problems are, dates that it occurred, what that person's done to try and resolve that problem so far, what roadblocks they've run into, and then come up with a plan of action on how we can help get that resolved. David Markham is one of our wonderful consumer advocate volunteers. He works on our Wednesday shift. He's a resident here in McFarland, so he came in today. And I'm going to have him talk with you a few minutes about a particular case, about kind of what he does, what a consumer advocate does when they get a case in, and exactly the nuts and bolts on how we help people. So I'll turn it over to you, David.
Thank you, Jackie. Good afternoon, everyone. I've been with Call for Action, 2022. I started working there after I retired from the military and the state, and I had background in purchasing and contracting with the military, so I understand contracts. I'm not a lawyer, but I know enough about terms and conditions that hopefully that helps me help people when they've signed a contract and they don't know what they're supposed to be getting. So one of the things Jackie wanted me to talk about too is when a call comes in, we do gather information, and first and foremost, I want to let people know that we can't deal with anything that's legal. If legal gets involved, we have to stay out of it because we're volunteers. So go ahead.
Can you adjust the microphone?
Sure, sorry. Is that better? Okay. So we can't take on any kind of legal action. But when somebody calls in and says they're having a problem, sometimes it's just a sympathetic ear. They just want to vent, or talk to somebody. So we gather as much information as we can. If they start to go on kind of lengthy, at least on my cases that I've had, I have to kind of stop them because, again, we're only there for 3 hours, and we have other calls coming in. So I'll try to get their email address if they have one, and I'll send them an email address saying, here's the other information that I need from you, so that they can give a nice, concise report of what happened rather than us trying to take it all down, as we're talking on the phone. Sometimes you can lose part of that information in the translation. So the big thing is gathering information, trying to find, like Jackie said, dates and times, who they talk to. And a lot of times people, when they have an issue with a credit card company or Amazon or something, they don't think about that. They say, I ordered this stuff and I never got my product, but they don't get the person's name. And that helps us a lot if we can get the individual they talk to and a telephone number, because then we can go directly back to them. So the one case that I wanted to talk about, I had this back in, it was 2023. I had a gentleman our age that invested $77,000 in cryptocurrency. I take things to heart. He said he didn't trust banks. He bought the cryptocurrency online from a place in Holland. He said he didn't trust banks. He wanted higher rates of return. Every time he checked his account, it was going up, and it was going up. He said it looked like it was really going good. Then when he went to draw out $5,000, he couldn't get into the website. So I did some digging. Part of our job is research and trying to find resources or whatever. So I was able to find their affirmative act, or not affirmative action, but their Dutch Authority of Financial Markets, called AFM. And I talked to somebody that was kind of like their attorney general in Holland. And he said there was really nothing they could do. They have policies, but they don't help personal issues. But he gave me some other numbers and information, and I forwarded that on to the guy. And I followed up with him a few months afterwards, and he was still at a dead end. There was really nothing he could do. So I also checked in and found out that we should, recommend that they go to the Federal Trade Commission and file a report for international fraud. So that would involve Interpol and other, police agencies and everything else. But there was really nothing we could do at that time. So, we don't have a magic wand. We can't fix everything. But part of our job, as Jackie said, is education. And we do have a wealth of resources. We have a big, thick book from Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. And so you can give us a thing like tenant resource or auto repair, and we can go look up, and they've got the agency that you need to call and talk to. So we can give more information, but it has to be a collaborative effort. I've had a couple of consumers that have called and said, here's my problem, fix it. And then they don't give us all the information, and a call back or an email back and start doing that 2 or 3 times. And after a while, we can't do any more if we don't have the additional information that we need. So it is a two-way street. We have to work collaboratively together to try to solve that problem. And usually when I reach out and say, okay, I've been trying for 3 weeks now. If I don't hear from you by next week, I'm going to have to close your case. And I think sometimes that opens their eyes and say, oh, I'm sorry, we've been busy. We had some sick kids or whatever the situation, and I'll get the information I need to keep moving forward. But that's pretty much the kind of the day-to-day stuff that we have when they call in. So any questions? Okay, that's all I got.
Good. Thanks.
Yep.
I told you that our volunteers are passionate. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. So, sometimes a satisfactory resolution can be obtained by the consumer with our help, simply by, sometimes we look up information, they call us, we look up information, and we give them what they need. Sometimes we give them a little bit of information and point them in the right direction, who it is they need to talk to or how they should have a conversation, and they can resolve it themselves. And other times it's the consumer advocate getting directly involved. So some issues are taken care of in a phone call or within a day. And other issues can take many months to close. It just depends. There's a lot of gray area in there. We often also work cooperatively with many state and federal agencies in resolving issues, as well as helping to track and combat crime, fraud, scams. And you'll find that we will, not uncommonly, really urge consumers to report their issue to authorities or to a particular government agency while we're working with them. And that can be vitally important. And I'll give you an example of another case, a huge case that we worked on, involving contractor fraud. One of our volunteers, and it just so happened to have been his very first day of work, the very first case he took on was a consumer that said, I had this contractor come out to look at some remodeling in my house. They told me what it would be. And we agreed to have him do the work, paid him 50% down. They came out and worked for, I don't know, a day or a couple of days, and left. The work that they did wasn't very good. So they needed to come out and fix what they had started, and they needed to finish the work. They could not get a hold of that contractor again. That money was just gone. They tried every way, and they couldn't get a hold of that contractor. Within a couple of weeks, I forget if it was 2 or 3 weeks, we had gotten calls from a handful of consumers that was having problems with this same contractor. You may have heard things on the news. His name is Tyler Hansen. But because we were starting to see multiple cases, we called up our friends at DATCAP, the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. And we said, hey, we've got X number of cases, in a short amount of time against this contractor. Are you hearing anything about them? And they said, yeah, we are. This is something we're starting to look into. They said, first of all, make sure anyone you talk to reports this to their local police department, because this is contractor fraud. If they have hopes of getting their money back, there needs to be something on file. Second of all, make sure they also file a complaint with us, because we want to see how many of these complaints there are. The case built, this contractor had consumers that he had bilked money out of in 17 counties in Wisconsin. Hundreds of consumers, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So DATCAP eventually took this to the Department of Justice. They started looking into this. It was the contractor, his wife was working with him in the company, and he had a partner. They started looking into this. It went to the FBI because they suspected there was some money laundering, money hiding on it. Eventually, the company went to court. The contractor, his wife, his partner are all in prison now. There's been judgments. They're required to pay the money back. But will the consumers ever get the money back? Hopefully, but it's unknown. But it's the power of reporting. Every consumer that had money stolen from them by this contractor, they all had a piece of the puzzle that let the agencies take them to court and get them convicted of it and got them to stop doing what they were doing. So reporting can be very, very important. One last aspect of the Madison Call for Action is we produce a monthly newsletter for our consumers to help educate them. The newsletter has information about Call for Action. It has information about our volunteers. It highlights some of the cases that we've worked on, gives consumer tips and tricks. We always used to, and we still do, have our newsletter published on channel3000.com. So if you go to channel3000.com and then go to Call for Action, the first thing that's going to pop up is a form to fill out if you have a complaint. But if you scroll up and scroll down, you'll find newsletters, you'll find links to cases that have been on television and other information. So you can always find our newsletters there. This is a copy of one of our newsletters. And we've got some copies of the March and our April newsletters here if you want to take one home with you. And the April one, I don't think even is published yet. Is that right? So you'll be the first ones to have the April ones. But new in 2025 with our newsletters is that we're starting to email them out to consumers. So if it's something that you want emailed to you once a month, there's also a pad of paper over there as you're going out the door that you can write your email address on. It's the only email you're going to get for us unless we're working on a case for you or something, and we're not going to sell your email address or give it to anyone else. But if you want the email, or if you want the newsletter emailed to you every month, we can set you up to do that. So, globally, Call for Action solves about 90% of all cases that we work on. And annually, Call for Action saves consumers over $12 million in lost goods and services. So, and that's just the cases that come into Call for Action, and that's really pretty mind-boggling, I would say. In 2024, last year, the Madison Call for Action had over 600 cases reported to us. And we are extremely proud to say that we were successful in returning more than $969,000 last year alone to local consumers. So we're proud of that. That's a heck of a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. One thing that I'm asked when I'm out speaking and doing things frequently is, if you could tell someone one thing to do to keep themselves safe, what would that be? And my answer is go slow. Anything that you're doing online, anything that has to do with your identity, slow down and think about what you're doing. And I'll give you a great example on a case that I recently heard about. A couple in Arizona bought a new home, and dream home, except for the kitchen, kind of needed a remodel for what they were doing. So they did everything right to remodel their kitchen. They got a number of bids on it. They compared bids. They looked into the company, looked them up on Better Business Bureau to see if they had any complaints. They checked references. They got their bids in writing, what the total was, when payments were due, all of that. They did everything right. Chose the company. The company started. One of the points where they had to make a payment was when the cabinets and countertops came in. So the couple was out of town. They were on vacation, and the work was still going on their kitchen. And they got an email and said, cabinets are in, so we need you to pay I think it was $61,000 at this point. So, okay, that's what they expected. Yeah, it was a full kitchen remodel. They said, okay, but we're out of town, we can't run over and pay you. Well, how can we handle this? And they got an email back and said, are you familiar with wire transfers? You could do it as a wire transfer. And that's something they had done before. They weren't unfamiliar with it. They're like, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. So they said, give me the information that we need to do for the wire transfer. So another email came back and said, this is our bank routing number. This is our bank account number. So they had their bank do a wire transfer to the remodeling company's bank of the $61,000. Within a day, they got another email from the company and said, there's another form you have to fill out. Our bank wants to make sure that you're saying you want to pay us this money, so fill out this form saying, you authorize this much money to be paid to this account. And they thought, they hadn't experienced that before with wire transfers, but I can understand it. So they filled that out, sent it in. Before they got back home, or maybe it was when they got back home, the company that was doing the remodeling said, hey, when are you going to pay for your cabinets? And they're like, we paid for the cabinets last week. We did the wire transfer to you. We don't know anything about a wire transfer. What happened was, and I don't know how this happens,